Good morning, fellas.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, y'all.
What's going on?
And happy Mother's Day to the mothers, to my mother and all the mothers.
Yeah, happy
All
Mother's
right.
Day.
So, welcome back to another team meeting. Yes, on Mother's Day. 7 days a week, we get better. Where our mission is to distract you from your current story, dismantle your current belief systems, and most importantly, inspire you to change your mind with the idea that once you change your mind, you can change your life. Of course, all of the places where you can find us, like, comment, but most importantly, our mission is to serve. So please share. So, the topic for today is the death penalty. And I'll tell you in advance, no, not the death penalty from the legal system, nothing that a judge can give you. But you'll find out what the death penalty is in a couple of minutes. But before we talk about that, let's talk about habits. We're going to talk about the death penalty, but first we're going to talk about habits. And the reason for this is 2 weeks ago when we were on, I remember Just said something about our crisis in our community is actually health. That's what's killing us. It's not really anything else. It's health that's killing us. And I know I was talking about that magic number of being 50, where a lot of people, primarily men and black men, are dying around 50. But then also a lot of the people, speaking for me personally, that I study who are very, very, very successful men and women too are about this age. They're also at about 50. So people are like dying or thriving at this magic age. So I took it upon myself to do some research on health, and this is what I came up with. So first, habits. What are habits? So habits form over time by repeating certain thoughts, feelings, or behaviors until they become firmly embedded as memories. Some can be instilled consciously, like where you're paying attention and you're doing it on purpose, but most of the times they are formed without us even being aware of them. When we drive to school or work every morning, or when we used to, a lot of times we don't even recognize how we got there. Like we just go. We can be on the phone. You can be, some of us text while driving or music or watching something or listening to something, and you just get there. It's because subconsciously you've built the habit of traveling that route. All right. And then you just memorize it in due time. Habits run beneath our awareness. So in our subconscious, once again, we don't have to think about most of the things that we do as habits. We just do them. Like addictions, habits are triggered and then operate on autopilot. So something happens, you have a response. Something happens, you have a response. Your brain doesn't recognize habits as good or bad, it only sees them as neural patterns. And we won't get into that, but every single thing that you do, there's a series of circuits that fire in a specific route in your brain. With consistent practice, you can change your disempowering habits, so habits that take away your power, and you can switch them to empowering habits, habits that give you power, right? But you have to do that intentionally. So, a habit loop. So, this is how every habit happens. So, first, there's a trigger, right? Trigger. So, something happens, you're hungry, hypothetically. You get hungry. That's your trigger. Or you show up to the Mother's Day party. Trigger. All the food is on the table. All right. Next, you have your behavior. So when you're hungry, you go eat. All the food is on the table, you eat. All right. And then after your behavior, you get your reward. So there's always a trigger followed by a behavior, then a reward. And the more you run around this loop, the more your brain gets used to doing it, and the stronger those patterns become. You have to identify the triggers so you can disrupt this loop and break the cycle. If we're talking about going from bad habit to good habit, All right. If you're working on your diet, when you get hungry and you go to the bad snacks or the bad food, your reward is that it's like comfort food. We all heard of that. You feel good, you're no longer hungry, but you also get like a dopamine hit. Just like a drug, that's why they call it dope, from eating that food. But let's say, all right, I'm on a diet, but I don't want to eat that food. You have to interrupt this loop somehow. So the one thing you're probably not going to eliminate is the trigger. Like you're going to get hungry. That's that's going to happen. But you can change the behavior. How about just don't buy the food? If you have to snack, put some apples and oranges and granola or something in your snack cabinet instead of Cheetos and Fritos and everything else. You miss that typical reward, right? You don't get the dopamine rush, you don't get that comfort feeling, but you do get another reward of the benefit of your physical gain, right? Even your mental gain from being healthy. So trigger, behavior, reward. That's the habit loop. Um, Repeat. All right. So what types of habits are there? You have empowering habits that give you power. Disempowering habits, they take away power. So habits are changed by changing your mindset, your environment, and taking baby steps. Mindset, environment, baby steps. Once again, they're simply patterns that happen below your conscious, right then your subconscious. Half of the time you don't notice what you're doing. But it's your responsibility to intentionally shift as many habits as possible to be ones that give you power instead of ones that take away your power. Intentionally shift. Your old habits never die. They just kind of decay through long-term inactivity. It's like if you had neighbors in your neighboring house and they move out and nobody ever comes to move in. 3 months later, they're going to be weeds everywhere, the feral cats and rats and whatever else. Like it's still there, but it just decayed because nobody's using it. So that's how people relapse. They have a bad habit, they get a good habit. The bad habit never went away. They just started firing some different circuits, and you have to leave them alone long enough for them to decay away. Um, and if your old habits are highly pleasurable, like food, addictive, like food, formed out of fear or trauma, where you can go to comfort food. I'm using food because it's a universal example. It can take much longer to weaken those neural connections. So just like people who know what they should be doing, but they don't do it, it's primarily because it's pleasurable, addictive, or they were formed out of fear or trauma, and they give you comfort and safety. All right, so disempowering habits, as I said, those are your bad habits, and they take away your power. Empowering habits, and they hold you back. They take away your power. Cool. Empowering habits are your good habits, and they give you power. But notice from the images, bad habits are far easier. Right, my man right here carrying this little ball and chain. It's far easier. It's easy to do. These other three over here with the empowering habits is far more difficult. Right, far more difficult. So bad habits are easy. Good habits are difficult. All right, so now let's dive deeper into good and bad habits, and we'll get to the death penalty. So bad habits that take away your power. So there are tons of bad habits, but some of the more prevalent ones include smoking, poor eating habits, and laziness. According to the most recent data, like from this week, from the CDC, the things we choose to consume and do, like preventable poor diets and lack of exercise, smoking, and drinking, contribute to nearly half of the deaths in America. So here's the death penalty part. So first, before we dive into the data, remember, one of the principles that we go by is it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. It's not your fault, but it's still your responsibility. So first piece of data, tobacco. Cigarette smoking is responsible for more than 480,000 deaths per year, about 17% in the United States, essentially 1 out of 5 people, including more than 41,000 deaths resulting from secondhand smoke exposure. This is about 1 in 5 deaths every year, about 1,300 people a day. So that's tobacco. Number 2, bad eating and inactivity. Unhealthy diet contributes to approximately 678 deaths, 1 in 4 people each year in the U.S. due to nutrition, obesity-related diseases such as heart disease, cancer, and type 2 diabetes. And here's where we're tied into Mother's Day. Not just mothers, but this is parents. This was by far the most powerful piece of data that I've discovered in a very long time. So in the last 30 years, obesity rates have doubled in adults, tripled in children, and quadrupled in adolescents. Doubled in adults, tripled in children, quadrupled in adolescents. That's ridiculous. Like that's the proof is in the pudding that 9 times out of 10 it's not hereditary, right? And like just for people's knowledge, when you go to the doctor and they ask you if your mom or your dad or your grandma, whoever in your family that came before you had so-and-so disease, it's not because anything in your body. They're asking you because they're learning about your habits. It's not because of anything that you have genetically in your body. It's things that happen in your body because of your habits. So 1 in 5 people, they die because of tobacco. 1 in 4 people, they die because of bad eating and inactivity. Next piece, alcohol. This is actually lower than I thought. Excessive alcohol use is responsible for more than 95,000 deaths, about 3% in the U.S. each year, or 261 deaths per day. These deaths shorten the lives of those who die by an average of almost 29 years for a total of 2.8 million years of life loss. So we got tobacco, bad eating, and alcohol. 24 plus 3 is 27, 47, 44%. So 44% of the deaths in our country are completely by choice. The residuals of your choices. Triggers, behaviors. So it can be your reward or it can be your penalty. 44%. So now let's get over 50. Let's be specific. So the average life expectancy is just about 79 years in America, 78.8. But this was the most powerful piece of data that I found, speaking specifically to Black men. So the leading cause of death for Black males ages 1 to 19, number 1 is homicide. Number one overall is heart disease for everybody else. Well, for everybody together. Number 1 is homicide. Number 3 is suicide. So we're killing each other and we're killing ourselves. Literally. Even before the tobacco, before the bad eating, before the alcohol, we kill ourselves, we kill each other. Leading causes of death for ages 20 to 44 Black males. Once again, number 1 is we kill each other. Number 4 is we kill ourselves. So just on this screen alone, more than 50% of our deaths come from personal choices, the residuals of personal choices. Right? It's not the police fault. It's not the school system fault. It's not Trump fault. It ain't Biden fault. It wasn't Obama fault. A lot of these things come from us ourselves. So just on the screen between homicide, suicide, drugs and alcohol, eating, and not working out. We just falling off the face of the earth because of the choices that we make. Right? And I got way more slides I'm not going to go through because I took this from a lesson actually that we did with a school to talk about some solution-oriented things. But I thought that this slide by far was extremely powerful. And these are things we control, especially the middle one. Like this one, and like once you commit, if and when you commit, and I can't speak for everybody, but maybe some other health conscious people, it's like when you look at other people put those things in your body, you like shake your head. and like not maliciously, because like people I love still, that's what they do. Like, cool, but once you understand the consequences that come along with these things, it's kind of disheartening to just look at the world around you and watch as we fall apart. So I don't really want to go beyond this, fellas. I think this is more than enough for us to speak about. So my point is that we just gotta have better habits and get beyond the comfort that these things bring to us because it takes our life away far sooner than I believe to be necessary. So let's go. Let's go. Pizzle, G, Jess.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely very, very interesting. And I think it kind of hits a point, especially when you look at the ban that Biden just did on what do you do? He did a ban on flavored cigars and tobacco, right? When you look at it, and I laughed at that this week because it's like, the government has a hand in a lot of tobacco, right? Like tobacco is very, very profitable for the government. They're able to tax it. They're able to get a lot of money back. Anytime you have the government actually coming out and being like, yo, like, y'all should just go ahead and stop it, I think that is a telltale sign that like, yo, it really is bad for you, right? And then a lot of times, and I don't know if it's coincidental or what, but a lot of times you go in certain areas, sometimes a lot more poverty-stricken areas. A lot of times you see those same exact three categories right there in one block within a 100 feet, radius. So you think about it, you got carryouts next to the liquor store, which is right next to the tobacco store where you can pay your cell phone. Then you go to the 7-Eleven. And it's always funny. Like I always laugh now when I go to 7-Elevens or I go to certain stores. And I'm like, damn, like they got like 100 different tobacco products now. They got chewing tobacco. There's just different types of cigars, 99-cent cigars. So it's kind of alarming to see everything that is available for you if you don't know how to make the right decisions. And to see how everything is kind of coupled together so that way you remain in this little like disempowering bubble, I guess you could say. But it's very important to ensure that you are eating healthy, right? I know my father passed at the age of 57. I know Just's father passed, I don't know which age it was, but also a young man as well. And it's also it's interesting to see, like, even within the past few months, like DMX passed at 50. The guy who did the Humpty Hump, he passed away at a very young age, right? And I think that a lot of these things, as far as like alcohol or tobacco and eating the wrong foods consistently, I think it definitely attributes to a lot of that. So us as Black men, especially, and us just as men in general, is very important to ensure that we have like proper health and we're doing the proper exercises and the proper activities to ensure that we're able to last longer. So at first, Malcolm, when you put up the little death penalty, I'm like, what's he about to talk about? But now I see the correlation, and there truly is a death penalty when you look at a lot of the situations that us African Americans are in.
Cool. So, excuse me. First thing, KP, it's not coincidental that you go on the block and you see liquor store, fast food, 7-Eleven, second liquor store, so on and so forth. Like, that's planned, which is crazy once you start to go into these more affluent neighborhoods and see that they may have the wine and spirit store, but you don't see nothing called a liquor store. And it may be a Panera, but there's no Checkers. So the more you dig into that, the crazier that gets. But Malk, as I'm listening to you, and this hit home for me, and I'll explain why, but this is like the human condition is crazy because as you go through these different topics, these things that kill us, think about all the excuses we make to avoid doing the right thing. And I think that's the biggest problem with us as humans. I don't think it's a Black people thing or a white people thing or whatever, but we will bail ourselves out from doing the right thing, mostly because it's difficult, or at least it's perceived as being difficult. Once you get started, it's not as hard as you thought it was, but that initial first step is the hardest part, especially with eating. And with it being Mother's Day, I want to shout out my mom because between her, actually my mom and my dad and myself, like since January, we've lost a combined 70 pounds. And that has been just a choice, more so than anything, just a choice to get ourselves right because either we looked at ourselves and said we don't like the direction we're going in, or they watch this every Sunday and they see the information we're putting out, and it's like at some point you think it can't happen to you, but it will. So you have to step up to the plate and you have to do what you got to do, because at a certain point it becomes too late. So first off, I'm happy we're talking about this, and secondly, hopefully we dive deeper into how you start good habits. I know we talked about the cycle, but how do you take that first step and really stick to whatever it is you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, great input, G. Can you go back to the last slide, Mal, just so I can speak to some of those points? So while Mark is getting the slide together, I definitely echo the point that G made about none of these products being easily accessible in impoverished or poverty neighborhoods on accident. It's extremely strategic. I think the one great thing that I think anyone can understand is the idea that there is an entire industry called urban planning. Okay, it is filled with data scientists. It is filled with behavioral scientists, sociologists, and people who literally study humans. Okay, they're aware of triggers, they're aware of behaviors, they're aware of creating the environment for certain actions to continue to replicate and happen over and over again. And I remember Jay-Z saying something in a song before, maybe in the 90s, he said they call it a project because it's a project, right? And essentially, in many poverty-stricken neighborhoods, it is ground zero for testing. It is ground zero for playing out some of these data sets and some of these different initiatives just to see how it would impact the rest of our society. So, when G says, hey, look, maybe here in DC, you go down the block, you're going to see this liquor store, you're going to see this carry out, you're going to see this tobacco store. Now you see weed stores. Popeyes right next to the weed store, literally right next door. And then literally right next door to that is the tobacco shop. And literally right next door to that is a convenience store, which has every single thing you could look for without having to go to the supermarket, right? So all of these things are put here. Yes, maybe the new people coming to cities see it as convenience, but for the people that have been essentially trapped in this lifestyle, it has essentially made them handicapped to even have the need to explore. And for me, I've understood that it's not a black or white thing. It's really a proximity thing. Because if you ever get a chance to travel, and I dare to say I don't necessarily know the data, but I do know that there's a lot more poor Caucasian people in this country than there are Black people. I mean, go to all of Middle America. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, a lot of the same symptoms show up. It's just not as publicized. And unfortunately, when we speak to these leading causes of death, due to health issues, bad eating, tobacco use, alcohol, even it's really alarming to me how even when you combine all of them, which happen on a daily basis, right? The poor eating habits. I'm going to Popeyes and just getting a bucket of chicken instead of cooking for my family. I'm going to get me something to drink because work was hard today, or these kids getting on my nerves, or a little 7-year-old girl got shot in my neighborhood last week, and this is just too much to continue to handle. Even with all of that happening on a daily basis, those combined 3 leading factors don't even compare to the one, which is homicide. And homicide is just a symptom of people fighting over resources. I mean, it happens in war. That's literally the reason why so many people die for the flag in America. It's a fight over resources. It's fight over power. Literally the same thing happens in our neighborhoods. This one is in control of this area. This one disrespected that rule. This one has to go. I mean, humans only replicate what they see. So when Malcolm says, hey, there's a young lady or there's a young boy that goes to the doctor's office, maybe 5, 7, 8 years old, and they ask what kind of hereditary issues exist in the family, that little kid doesn't really understand that eating an adult-sized portion is bad at 5 and 7. The doctor knows the outcome, right? The doctor is also not going to make it his business to say, hey, look, we need to incorporate exercise daily. We need to cut out the chicken. We need to do all of those things. That doesn't happen for young children. It also doesn't happen for sick patients. And I'll give you this real life example. When my dad got diagnosed with cancer at 48, we quickly learned that a lot of his reality came from the foods that he ate. My dad didn't eat poorly from what we thought, right? He didn't eat chicken. He didn't eat beef. We never ate pork growing up. Almost like 5% of the household. But what we did eat was a lot of the silent killers. We ate dairy. We ate soy. We ate wheat, right? We understood that those things break down. We learned that those things break down your immune system so that your body can't fight against diseases or bacteria or viruses, right? And if you look on the back of any and most of our products that we consume legally, at the bottom of all of those words that we can't pronounce, they have to put in bold letters, legally, contains 4 categories: milk, wheat, soy, or nuts. Next time you go grocery shopping or next time you go into your cabinet, I dare you to separate all of the things that have milk, wheat, or soy in them. You'll see about 90% of the products that we consume are essentially leading us into this direction on why there's more of a norm of cancer in our household, very similar to AIDS in the 70s and 80s. I mean, there's really not a person that we can speak to in this country at this point that hasn't had a very close relative, friend, or neighbor that has suffered or passed away from cancer. And I say that because those things are just as systemically real as the accessibility to these 4 categories of homicide: tobacco, poor eating, and alcohol, right? So it's just important to know that there is a system or a set of individuals who study you, who study your habits, who study what happens when you put things in close proximity to people. And it's important for us just to make the conscious decision to learn realities that can change this trajectory, because this thing called life is a one-way trip, y'all. I mean, it's as me and my friends on this call, my brothers on this call get older, I mean, we really get a chance to see how young 50 is. Like that's heartbreaking, man. Like that's genuinely heartbreaking. And I know me and Malk and me and KP have talked about it on a number of occasions, but like we're at the age where we still need our parents, man, even though we're adults. Like, just to be honest, this is a new chapter we're stepping into of adulthood, and stepping into this chapter without our parents is it's like going to war without a bulletproof vest on. I mean, you can make it, but the bullets are flying, and if you're more than likely you're going to get hit, but you're hoping that it doesn't hit that center mass like Big Mike talked to us about the other week, and I'd like you all's perspective on the number one leading cause for young people 1 to 19 being homicide, even though we're talking about these behavioral, the big 3 category at the bottom of the screen are choices. We can't necessarily say that homicide is a choice more so than a learned behavior, right? Tobacco is a learned behavior. Bad eating is definitely a learned behavior. right? And I would say tobacco and alcohol are more so coping skills. Coping mechanisms than poor eating. Eating, I think, literally just comes from like being trained to eat in that way. So, what are you guys' thoughts and perspectives on, homicide being just the leading cause simply of black males 1 to 44?
Well, let's each give 30-second responses to that, and then listening to y'all primarily to G. I guess let's just converse as I go through the rest of the slides because that's where the strategies that I believe are to respond to these things. So my first 30 seconds to answer Just's question and about the other 3 areas, they're all directly related to stress, right? Oh, I had a bad meeting. Let me go outside and hit this cigarette. Or it doesn't, like just you said, 90% of the foods that are available for us to eat are unhealthy. So people don't eat healthy because they have to eat the same thing over and over and over. Because everybody looks at food as an experience instead of fuel, right? And once their body gets that experience, they choose to continue to get that experience instead of being healthy. Alcohol, I got to go take a shot after work, or it's the only way that I can have fun. And then the gangs and the poverty and the horrible family cultures that we're raised up in, generally speaking, lead to the homicides, I would say. So my response to you, Jess, is just the abnormal amounts of stress from society, number one, and then also the stress that we unknowingly, voluntarily put ourselves through would be my response to that.
And Just, could you repeat your question one more time?
Yeah, I was just wondering what your all's input is even though tobacco, bad eating habits, and alcohol combined are, some of the leading causes, they still together don't, they're not as big as the leading cause of death in black males, 1 to 44 being homicide. So why do you think that all of the choices at the bottom of the screen combined still don't overweigh or outweigh homicide?
That's a very good question. I think more so because the food, alcohol, and drugs. I mean, to me, it like Malk said, it's almost like a learned behavior, right? Like that's something that you learn as time goes on. But homicide is something that can be factored and be influenced by many different things besides just alcohol, tobacco, and drug use. Because homicide, you can get killed for no reason, right? Walking down the street. But why is it always happening to African American men? I don't know. I don't know. To answer your question, honestly, I don't know because it's hard. It's hard to pinpoint it to me because, like I said, when you talk about drug, alcohol, and tobacco, that's a little bit different. But to me, when it comes to homicide, I look at homicide like it's a choice too. I know you looked at it differently, and you said it's not necessarily a choice, but I think that you have the choice to put yourself in certain situations that's going to enhance or is going to or decline the opportunities for you to be killed by the hands of another man. So, hope that answered your question, but I can't really pinpoint it.
All right, Just so I wrote down, I'm over here scribbling up some stuff as they're talking. I wrote down 3 things. And number 1 is resources, which we touched on earlier. When there's a limit to the amount of resources you have, that creates stress. And that means that you have to be more intentional about how to access those resources because there's less of them. So the second word I wrote down was process. So you got these resources that you got to get, and you got to take a process. You got to make a process to get them. And usually people look for the shortcut. So when you look for the shortcut, you skip that process, and that puts you in a situation where usually it's going to be me or you. And I think that as we get older, I think the culture, just the American culture in itself, has put a lower value on life. So when you don't value life and you're taking this shortcut and it's me or you, a lot of people are going to naturally you're going to choose yourself. It's nature. But I think because of that process flow, you have an increase in crime because there are less resources. People are less interested in taking the long way to get them. And I don't value your life. So why not just eliminate you and get to the resource quicker? So you're going to continue to see, and this is not only, I know you said black men 1 to 44, but every day you turn on the TV, it's another shooting. I think it was one yesterday in Times Square, a 1-year-old got shot. It's a shoot. I saw something where a 5-year-old or an elementary school girl brought a gun to a school in like Idaho or something. We just don't value, from kids to adults, we don't value life. So we're going to continue to see this uptick in guns and those types of occurrences that rob people of their life.
Yeah, great perspective, y'all. I wasn't necessarily looking for a right answer. I just wanted to see you guys' insight because it was definitely like alarming to me. Go ahead, Mel.
All right, so let's break that down. And G, I agree, because remember, stress is when there's a perceived imbalance between the demands placed on you and your ability to meet them. Demand and abilities, and also the needs you have, but you don't have enough resources to meet those needs. So those lack of resources and that lack of ability, and compared to the demands and the needs, that's where the stress comes from. And people are not willing to go through the process to get to improve their ability and to get those resources, right? It's going to take too long. We don't realize that on average, we got 80 years. So all of us collectively, we're like 31 and a half. Even if you got to struggle your life away, reading, eating clean, working out, entrepreneurship, whatever, for 10 years. Oh my God, a whole decade. Are you 40? You got another 40 to reap the benefits, you know? And then also, I'll say this is a pure Malcolm mentality kind of statement, but if you don't cherish your health as a parent, you cutting those people, your kids short. You're doing a lot of selfish stuff. If you don't make it to their wedding because you had a heart attack that wasn't just a natural cause because of your intake and your diet, that was selfish. That's not really love. Like, you continue to choose the poor diet over your kids. Like, I know personally, like 100%, this is not made up. People who were literally dying and the doctor told them what to do. I can't give that up. You're a sucker. You're a cold sucker. I don't care what nobody tell you, man, woman, old lady, young man, whatever, you're a cold sucker. Because you're choosing death for some chicken or to sleep in or whatever the case may be. We just read the data. So let's break it down. So this is kind of extensive. So whenever y'all want to jump in, let's jump in. So we continue bad habits because they give us the comfort that we need. Your brain can't tell the difference between good and bad. It only knows comfort and uncomfortable, and it naturally seeks comfort. That's how people say, oh, your workouts are too early at 8 o'clock because they're comfortable in their bed. Because they probably was up drinking and eating food that's going to make them lethargic the night before. Or they get up for their job, but they won't get up for themselves. They seek that comfort. Not realizing that once they hit that 50 mark, for the sake of this conversation, you're going to be real uncomfortable in that hospital bed. You're going to make your family real uncomfortable because you chose that comfort over overdoing what the thing that we all know is right. When you feel comfort, you get that rush of dopamine. The biggest drug in the world in this country is food. And also, like, the things that they put in the hood, we don't have to buy those. The convenience stores keep popping up. The liquor stores keep popping up. And the other places y'all mentioned keep popping up because they know they're going to get the business. And they're usually people from other cultures, immigrants who just moved here yesterday, or other people who've been here for forever that come here. Oh, I know they're going to buy it. Like, tobacco is illegal to even advertise, but it's still so they know we're going to buy it.
Malk, I want to hop in with that and say a quick comment. It's not coincidental. I always laugh. Why are Walmarts always in certain neighborhoods, right? And why is it that even at Walmart they include food? When you go to the front counter, it's a big counter of nothing but tobacco, and now you can actually buy your beer and alcohol from Walmart as well. And why is it that Walmarts are always popping down south in certain areas? Everything is Walmart, and you can buy guns. Like, it's not a coincidence that Walmart saw this and was like, yo, let's continue this because it's a great profit for us. But I always thought that was an interesting thing.
Good point. And like just said, like those things are purposely placed in these places due to studies of the demographics that live in those places. Um, we rationalize, this is a big one, we rationalize our bad behaviors if society finds it to be acceptable. Bad habits only provide temporary comfort. The long term solution to rid yourself of bad habits is discomfort, right? So you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. It's the only way you grow by stepping into the unknown. And as I said, if and when you turn that leaf, this sticks out a lot. Like when you go out to the bar or to dinner with your family or your friends, and you're the only one drinking water, you're the only one who struggled to get something off the menu because you went to everywhere is the chicken and beef show, right? And they try to you got to eat shrimp over and over and over, and you really don't want to eat shrimp, but like there's nothing else. Everybody else got these big plates, 2 or 3 things, and like you got your little cup of water and your little shrimp, and that's fine, and no shade. But like once you have a reason important enough, these things start to pop out to you in life because you're choosing the discomfort. You want to be here to that 78.8 at the minimum. You got people counting on you. You're not going to chop off those last 38.8 because you couldn't go a night without a beer, or you could not take the shot, or all your friends pressured you. Oh man, you don't gotta drink that. Oh, all right, it's just one night, or it's the weekend, right? There's usually a breakdown before a breakthrough. Like normally, people that do get it, like, oh, I had that heart attack. Now I gotta get it together. My change was I saw Justice Pops. Like he said, the food. As soon as I saw that, food was done, and I never cheated. I'm only 31, but I'm about 5 years in now. No chicken, no beef, no pork. I don't eat chips. I don't even put sauce on my food. I rarely even drink juice. Like none of that kind of stuff, because like I'm a machine. That's how I look at myself. And I got a little man that's counting on me. You feel me? And at the average pace, I'm gonna be gone when he's 28. And I just said in our lives, kind of speaking for us collectively, we needed our parents a lot more as adults than we did as kids. That could just be us in our life, but it's like the struggles that we go through now is because we don't really have anybody ahead of us that went through them. And what you choose as comfort, you choose what you see as comfort because discomfort is your friend. So I know we talked about stress as being a cause of those 4 areas we focused on, but also the D cause of that is you seek out stress. I stress myself out every day, 7 days a week, getting up at 5 to read, right? To learn, to go hit the basement, to do my workout, right? That's stressful. Like people think I like doing that. I really don't like doing it, but I'm in love with the residuals that come from that. So to answer G's question, how to break a bad habit. So number 1, make it completely invisible. Reduce your exposure. Remove the cues from your bad habits from your environment. Mouth, that's not that easy, right? 7-Eleven is everywhere, right? Once you eat healthy, you can go in 7-Eleven, you can't get anything. Like there's absolutely nothing you can get, right? I guess my sin is that I still drink coffee, so like that's what I can get from there. But there's literally nothing. I mean, you can get some water. You can get some water, and like some gum, right? So if you're in that kind of environment, maybe your focus needs to be to get your education up, to get your bread up so you can move out. My girl was just saying yesterday, like, yo, now when I go to, and I always tell y'all about this, when I go to the city, I can feel it. And like Pizzle said, like the liquor store is everywhere, but the people just look unhealthy. Like there's a certain kind of lint that you only see in the city. There's a certain kind of filth that you only see in the city. There's a certain kind of person that you only see in the city. And then once you venture out to the suburbs and there's a little bit higher level of wealth, and I'm not talking about $1 million mansions, like just middle class, I guess I should say. You don't see those stores anymore. The shoppers turn into Wegmans, and the other stores turn into the next level up. It's a totally different environment. So make it invisible. Or if you got those snacks on your shelf, don't buy them, right? Make it unattractive. Put up those pain points on your wall, or put up pictures of your son, your mom, your brother, your daughter. Put up the results of your bad decisions. Make it difficult. right? You cannot eat the snacks if you don't have them. Or you cannot kill somebody if you don't buy a gun and you're not mature enough yet to have a gun. And I'm sure most of those homicides are from illegal firearms, right? So if you don't have a license, you don't have a gun, right? So make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult. Lastly, make it unsatisfying. So as we stated in the beginning, the key to changing your habits, number one, is your mindset. So you're not taking none of those steps if you still have the mindset that you have with your bad habits. Like I just watched the podcast. Remember the big dude from Remember the Titans? Big, huge dude. I don't know his name. If you see him now, you will have no clue who he is. He's a machine. He was like 550 or something before. Now he's still a big dude. He's like 270, but he like 270, he'll knock you out. Not 270, he'll sit on you. And the first thing that had to change is his mind. So if your mind is weak, you will forever be stuck in the bad habit. So now, how do you create a good habit? Make it obvious. When you look in your cabinet or your refrigerator, like when people open my refrigerator, they know. Like, damn, bro, like you a health freak. I'm really not a health freak. I just cherish my mind and my body. Like there's no soda there. There's no liquor there. There's no bad food. Like you eat the same thing over and over and over. Yeah, bro. And for just as example, like there's only 10% of the products that I can use. Right? So design your environment. Even in the hood. Like your house is in the hood, but your house is your house. Like when you come in your house, this is a healthy place. Right? To where it's obvious that you're healthy. Make it attractive. I can guarantee you if they study, and I'll stick to our population, the older we get, the more pounds we get. Like it blows me away. Like when people post their Throwback Thursdays, like take me back 5 years ago. It was like, yo, it was 5 years ago and 50 pounds ago. Like just because you age does not mean that you have to gain weight. And most of that comes from stress, the comfort food, the comfort drinks. And that's not attractive. It's not attractive. So make your goals attractive. Find a way to motivate yourself. Put your old pictures up of what you look like. Or put your model or trainer that you aspire to be. Put it up. And then make it easy. It's so hard not to eat snacks when you got the snacks. Or it's so hard to go to Thanksgiving or Mother's Day dinner and not eat the dinner. Eat first. If you're already full, you're not going to eat that. You know? Or make it known. Like, yo, like my mom always tell my grandma, like Malcolm coming, like, you know, you don't eat that stuff. Everybody know. Everybody know. Right? So make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy. And the number one thing to do all that is to control your environment. Control your environment. And then obviously make it satisfying. If living to be average, 78.8 instead of 50 is not satisfying, you feel me? I ain't got nothing for you. So, you want to say something, G?
Yeah, I was going to add one thing. Plan. If you plan, then it becomes a lot easier, especially with food. When you think about it, you got all your good food in the house. But I think a situation that a lot of people slip up in is when they go out, maybe during the workday, and they didn't bring their lunch with them. Now they have to eat bad, or at least that's the excuse they make. I had to eat bad because I didn't have anything good, and this was the only thing available. If you plan ahead, if you meal prep, if you kind of plot out the good places that you can eat that are outside the home, it makes it a little easier to stick to your plan.
Yeah, 100%. And then to take that deeper, stick to the plan. Go ahead, Pizzle.
Oh no, I was saying, my bad. Just to speak to G's point, and Mal's point. So when you know, that's been my reality of going out to eat and noticing like, hey, I can only really focus on 5 to 7% of the menu. Food, appetizers, and drinks included. Like everything else just completely like I can't even focus on. So while it's frustrating in the beginning, you learn to adjust. Like now to G's point, you learn to plan ahead before you go to a restaurant. You learn to look at the menus, right? You learn to see what the reviews are. You learn to use Google. You learn to use Yelp. You use, you know, your different resources. And planning also helps to alleviate frustration. It allows you not to slip into those old habits that you're trying to break. And then also planning helps you to learn how to, hey, look, I need to bring my food certain places. I know everybody else might be, feasting on XYZ at the barbecue. I'm gonna be the weird dude with the Tupperware coming in. I'm gonna eat, you know what I mean? I'm gonna eat with y'all because I don't want, many times, Malcolm, I know you feel the same thing. You don't want other people to feel like they need to accommodate you, right? Like, I mean, that happens at nearly every family function for me. And it's not in a negative way, but it's just because I've committed, now me and my wife have committed to this lifestyle. And you'll realize that as you commit and stay consistent to it, how people's perspective changes. Like, oh, it is possible, right? Like, oh, it goes from, oh, you don't eat anything to like, what do you eat? Because in the beginning, it's like, oh, he can't eat anything, right? What do you eat, salads all day? Nah, I really don't, but it is an evolution. It's a process of an evolution. And I think now more than ever in our society is beginning to get a little bit easier because there are, businesses that are focused on serving people like us. There's the Kavas of the world. There's the Sweet Greens. You can get a veggie bowl at Chipotle if that's close to you. And things of that sort. People are making food like that interesting. Sorry to cut you off, KP.
No, you straight. I mean, those are all very, very good points as well. And I was going to add one last thing that a great tactic. Somebody told me this when you go grocery shopping, and like G said, you got to plan ahead before you eat. It's to second guess yourself when you get to the end before you check out. And that's something that I've been doing, and it's been helping because a lot of times when you come in, if you are emotionally tied to food, I love food. I used to be, huge boy, but a lot of times you'll find yourself going through the grocery aisles. You'll pick random things up. And then when you get to the end to check out, it's like, yo, you got apple juice, you got apple cider, you got a small thing of apple juice, you got another thing of juice. Like, yo, learn to second guess yourself and look at your cart and be like, yo, I really don't need that. Or I don't need that. Or, yo, I'm going to put this cheese back. I'm going to go get the right cheese, right? So that's a little tactic that I always use, and it's been pretty helpful. And even when you go out to eat, like second guess yourself to say like, yo, do I really need this? Or is this something I really want to put in my body? And that's like a helpful tactic.
Something that has really helped me and my lady with grocery shopping is planning our meals out for the week, right? That way it's like a targeted experience when you go into the grocery store. Like we know Monday we're going to eat this, that might roll into Tuesday. All right, cool. But we need to come up with at least 4 meals this week. All right. And what are those things going to be? So that we're only shopping for ingredients for those things. We always get, lots of produce every week. And I will share, I don't know if this is you guys' experience, but like once we cut the meat out, I mean, our grocery bill has gone down significantly. Maybe the only thing that really jacks it up is like seafood or where you decide to get seafood, because that is kind of expensive at times. But oftentimes you'll learn that meat is like one of the biggest ticket items in your basket. And once you kind of cut those things out, all disclaimer, in the beginning, you're going to have to buy, you're going to have a hefty bill because you're going to have to choose different salad dressings. You're going to have to choose different condiments or all of those normal, things to kind of switch out in your house. But as you regularly be in the food shop, your bill should be much lower.
But not coming up soon because there's a shortage of chicken, which is also scary because that's a whole. They got to mass produce these chickens in a very rapid pace. So now what Malcolm always says, chicken bombs, they're gonna be real chicken bombs out there. But yeah, the price of chicken's about to go up. So yeah, you'll see it on your receipts.
Oh, also, sorry, real quick. If you ever get a chance, the rapper 2 Chainz has a very interesting show on is it GQ or what is it?
Come on, Vice.
Oh, Vice. Yep.
Yeah.
It's what's it called? The
most expensive.
Most expensive is. So there's a gentleman that has raised nearly $2 billion in from investors. He has found a way to make chickenless chicken. Okay. Google it, YouTube it. He has found a way to make chicken essentially from an egg that had never been hatched into actual chicken. Now, it's not actual chicken, and it's all lab created, but there are $2 billion worth of money and investors who believe that that is worth continuing to process so that that can be available to us, I don't know, just in America or across the country. Because our expectations, if we're just going to take a step back, 30 seconds, y'all. If we're going to take a step back and look at the unrealistic expectations that we have as Americans, we're really setting ourselves up for these false foods and these fake foods, okay? Apples don't grow every season, y'all. Strawberries don't grow every season, y'all. There has to be a time frame where chicken is being born, being grown, being hatched. So how could you realistically have wings available at every supermarket, every country, I mean, in this country, in every city, in every town, in every corner, all at the same time? Like, just think of the logic of it. You understand? These things don't happen. Think of chickens like children. You know, it don't matter if everybody on your block is pregnant at the same time, you know, or somebody's having a child every other day. There's not that many baby arms that's going to be available, and you know, to fill up, especially for us as Americans, that we're not just buying a pack of chicken. We're buying the family pack. We're buying the Costco pack. We're buying the barbecue pack. You know, understand? So just think about maybe some of our expectations that we have and how we're maybe causing some of these realities of false foods, or, you know, foods that may not be accurately labeled just to meet our needs.
Good point, Jess. And Pedro, you brought up something powerful. The emotions tied to food. Like, that's the number one reason people can't do it. Number one, they're emotional eaters, and 99% of the emotional eaters refuse to admit that they're emotional eaters. Right? That's the problem. Like, you're eating off your emotions. And then it's like the people who do get it, who are health conscious, it's like, yo, you got to be careful. Because, like, God forbid you talk about somebody's weight. God forbid you talk about somebody's health. Oh, you're shaming me, or this is your own life, or you don't have to do this. Then the emotions come out. You feel me? And there's this saying, I think it's the Marines, I think. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Like, yo, if you done eating chicken, don't even pursue the taste no more. Like, I learned I can't even eat, I can, right? But I choose not to eat the fake chicken because it's like so much soy. Right? That's according to the data and what they say, that is pumped with a lot of femininity, to use regular terms, right? So it's like, yo, just let it go. Just let it go. Just let it go. So why is it so hard to break these bad habits? So we already talked about the brain, but we're going to talk about what's really going on. So 3 to 5% of what happens in your brain is what you're conscious about, right? So my mouth moving and how I'm talking, that's my subconscious. But I'm conscious about what I'm saying. I'm being very intentional about what I'm saying, especially on this. Because, you know, if we wasn't on camera, I'd let people have it. Like, I'm the guy that tell you the truth. Even some of y'all in the car, I still give y'all the boost to this day. Even when y'all doing the healthiest things y'all ever did, I'm still on your back, right? So my body moving and stuff is my subconscious. I'm not thinking about it. But what I'm saying is conscious. So 3 to 5% of what you do, you notice. But 95 to 97% of what you do, you don't notice. Right? That's why it's so hard to change those eating habits. Or it's so hard to change what time you wake up or go to sleep, what you put into your body, what you do to your body, because you have 3 to 5% battling 95 to 97%. Okay? So when your habits, your thinking, and your actions, they're all lined up, that's coherence. All right, I eat this food all the time. Or when I have controversy, I go get my gun all the time. So I'm thinking that I'm going to eat this food because I'm hungry all the time. Or I think that because Justin cuts me out, I'm going to go shoot him, homicide, all the time. So thinking, habits, actions, all aligned. That's coherence. This is your ideal state. That means that your subconscious and your conscious, you're at peace, right? I'm cool with stuff in my body, with this bad stuff, because it makes me feel good. I'm cool with seeking the violence because I'm going to get that positive affirmations from my friends, from my fellow friends who are also violent, right? It keeps us at peace. And naturally, we seek peace, not knowing that the comfort now is usually the discomfort later. And when we talk about the conscious and subconscious, those are not physical parts of the brain. It's just how your brain operates. So your brain is the thing in your head. But when that brain is operating, that's your mind, right? So brain is your vehicle, but the driver in your vehicle is your mind, right? So your brain changes after you change your mind. So if you try to interrupt those behaviors, you get dissonance. So when you go to that dinner later and all that food is on the table that you shouldn't eat, right? And it's going against everything, but you still want to eat it and you still do, you pick up that soda, that's called dissonance. And this happens when you shift from the old, comfortable, habitual script that you've been relying on for your whole life to trying new things like eating habits or starting a business, not having to rely on that check every 2 weeks and you got to rely on your skills and your will every 2 weeks, or admitting your mistakes, finally making that apology or some other kind of challenging task that takes you out your comfort zone. And the subconscious doesn't want you to start new patterns. It wants you to stick to what you already know. And dissonance is expensive, brain-wise. And it takes a lot of energy to say no. Like on the image, the empowering habits, they push that big boulder up the hill. It was hard. The disempowering habits, you just carry that little ball. It's easy. And that's called a switch cost. So to go from bad to good, you have to pay the cost. And too many of us, we count the costs. We don't count the value. I got to work out, but I still got my job and my family, so I got to use more time in my day. That's going to cost you waking up an hour or two earlier. A lot of people stop there, right? A lot of people that stop there. They don't count the value. Oh, by me paying this extra cost, I'm going to get those last 38.8 years. At least control of what I can control in this regard. So what does dissonance look like? What does it look like? You're not organized, like Justin G said. A lack of organization. You have to have a plan. Mood swings, emotional eaters, lack of personal peace. You're overwhelmed, confused, no energy. That's definitely a direct correlation to food. Self-doubt, worry and stress, fear, anxiety, excuses, like G said, procrastination. Oh, I'll start tomorrow. I'll start next week. I'll do it next time. Mind wandering, chaotic thinking. You're not confident, a lack of focus. So all of these things are directly attributed to dissonance. When you want to do the right thing, but you can't get yourself to do so. But what does coherence look like? You want to do the right thing, and you do get yourself to do so. Your peak performance, right? You can just look at somebody and tell what kind of standards they have for themselves. I don't care what nobody says, right? Your physical fitness is only a direct correlation with your standards. Unless you got some kind of sickness or some kind of disability where you really maxed out, all right, cool, like you're going through something. But normally, like as soon as you look at somebody, you can tell their standards, you know? Being in flow. A perfect example of flow is like when you hear that new song that you like, but you never really learn the words until 3 months later. Like, dang, that's what he's saying. And like you just dance every time. That's the perfect example of flow. Everything is just flowing. Organized. You got your plan. You're comfortable with your plan. Clear and focused thinking. Less stress. You're calm. Emotionally grounded. You're not an emotional eater. You're a sensible eater. You're not an emotional decision maker to where you're going to go start killing people. I'm gonna let you get it. You went on social media. You embarrassed me, but I'm not gonna go kill you and take your life away and put my life in danger. And now I'm in prison. And now my son don't got a father. And now he's more likely to grow up and be a drug addict and go to prison. And then his son, it just continues on and on and on and on. And more confidence and certainty. One thing I always think about is at the pool. I refuse to be a person that keep my shirt on at the pool because I'm worried about what other people think. You know, I refuse. I absolutely refuse. And there's a direct correlation between fitness and your confidence. All right. So we can skip the comparison. And I think it's just one more part. consequences. I hope that's next. All right, coherence and dissonance. All right, so how do you make hard choices? So don't confuse what you wish were true with what is really true. As I stated, like talking about health and weight, like even through game 7, I'm kind of hesitant because people just don't be ready for it. You know, like the people who are, it's obvious. But most people are not. But if you really, really want to confront these weaknesses, if you have any of these weaknesses and make these hard choices, number one is you got to tell yourself the truth, right? Don't lie to yourself. Don't worry about looking good. Instead, focus on achieving your goals. Like one thing that KG and I always urge people to do is keep your camera on, especially during our workouts. Like no matter whoever else is on, like yo, show that you're going through the process. Like you'll be surprised. Like if you are extremely overweight, you're much more likely to motivate the other overweight people than somebody who is in extremely good shape is, because they don't relate to that person. They often want to see people who look like them doing it because they're still, to be honest, emotionally weak, right? Ideally, if you want to get to tip-top shape in whatever it is, you should model the person who's already in tip-top shape, not the person who looks like you. They look like you for a reason because they haven't made the choices to get in tip-top shape. All right, so don't worry about looking good. Don't focus on the results, focus on the process. One goal at a time. And then, okay, consequences are after this. Don't overweigh first order consequences in comparison to second and third order consequences. And that's coming up next. But so many people get stuck on the first order consequences and don't make it to second and third. Don't let pain stand in the way of progress, right? It costs to make these good choices. It costs to have good habits. It costs you to have the bad habits too. But the good choices usually cost you now. The bad habits usually don't cost until later. But the good habits cost a lot less than the bad habits. It's just like now how they have these buy now, pay laters. You can go online and buy a TV for free, but then you're going to pay for it for the next 30 years and end up paying 10 times the cost.
I was about to say the same thing.
Huh?
I said I literally came off of mute to say the same thing. It's like when you buy a car, it might be harder for you to buy that car with cash up front. But it's going to be a lot cheaper than financing it for 5 years and paying that interest and looking back and realizing you paid an extra $5,000 or $10,000 because you put it off.
100%. 100%. Don't blame the outcomes on anyone but yourself. Right? It's not the hood fault that you go to the convenience store. It's your fault. It's not the hood fault that you go to the liquor store. It's your fault. Because contrary to belief, everybody doesn't do it. How they talk about the 80s and the crack epidemic, that there were millions of primarily like black men who did not fall victim to that, who was right there in the hood, who was right next door. Their brother could have been a kingpin or something. So many people did not fall victim to that. Don't blame the outcomes on anyone but yourself. And that's why I'm always big on talking about it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. And until we get it, nothing's going to change. We have to blame ourselves, right? And let's not get stuck on the blame, obviously, right? We don't want to blame and complain, but until we take responsibility, it's not going to change. So here's the key: the consequences or the death penalty. So people who overweigh first order consequences of their decisions and ignore the second and third and the fourth and the fifth, they rarely accomplish their goals. This is because first order consequences are far more desirable than second and third, and they always result in poor decision making. And we're going to list those out so you know what those are. First, second, third order consequences. First order consequences are commonly considered not to be desirable, while second orders are desirable. Quite often, the first orders are the temptations that cost us from getting what we really want. And sometimes they are the barriers that stand in our way of getting to the second and third order consequences. All right? The world will throw us tricky choices that have both types of consequences, and it penalizes those who make their decisions based on the first order consequences. However, on the contrary, people who choose what they really want and avoid the temptations and get over the pains that drive them away from what they really want, they are much more successful in life. So if you look at these three images, just imagine that these are all the same people. They just made different choices. Same people, different choices, different consequences. All right, so first order consequences. So exercise, diet, and reading. I chose three examples that are easy for everyone to relate to. So to exercise, it hurts, right? Especially if you haven't done it in a long time. And it costs you some extra time. I don't have time to work out. That's a myth. You're not admitting to yourself that it's not a priority for you, right? Oh, it hurts. My body is sore. Like, yeah. And your body's never going to be more sore than before when you're in that hospital bed and you don't wake up. A diet. You don't get to eat the food that tastes good. You don't get 90% of the menu, right? You got to drink the water while all your boys getting drunk. You gotta, oh, man. And just, you ever go to like a family affair and they try to be courteous and they got you a salad that's like just lettuce, it's like nothing there, right? You don't get to eat the food that tastes good. Or reading. You don't get to watch the Netflix shows that everybody else is watching. You don't get to play video games, right? You don't get to be stuck on TikTok learning the dances that everybody else is doing, and then you get around your family and friends and you the one looking like a nut because you're the only one that don't know it. But so many people, they get caught on first order consequences. That's the death penalty. All right, but number two, when you do pay that pain in time, you become more healthier and you look better because you pay that pain in time. Or when you don't eat the food that tastes good, you eat the food that serves you good, you're healthier and your body is cleaner inside. And when you chill out on the TV and the games and being on the phone and you do some reading, you're far more intelligent. You have more wisdom. You have more knowledge. You made it beyond step one. And third, when you pay that pain in time, you become more healthy, more attractive. You live longer. You have a stronger immune system. So when you do get sick, your body's in a stronger position to fight it off, right? Or if you do eat that healthy food, ideally, you'll live a longer life. You have a stronger immune system. When you do read and you become more knowledgeable, you'll be a better decision maker. You'll be more knowledgeable. Now, there's nobody in their right mind that doesn't want this. Everybody wants this. Anybody that say they doesn't, they're lying. But they're not willing to make it beyond step one to get here. That's why people are willing to love their family, but be selfish with their diet. That's why they're willing to love their family, but be sloppy when they walk their daughter down that aisle. Nobody wants that. So people get stuck here. That's why we killing each other. That's probably my response, Jess. A lot of that comes from the environment and society. And I don't want to be no BITC XYZ. So I gotta do something. I'm gonna go find this gun. I'm gonna off them. I'm gonna deal with my consequences. Oh, I'm a man. I'm gonna do my time. Or then when you get hit with that case, you start telling on everybody else. Right? You couldn't take that pain and embarrassment for being that BITC on Instagram or when you go to school because they shot at you and you ain't shoot back. Right? Or you're not embarrassed because you did pay that pain in that time because you woke up early to read. You woke up early to get your workout in. Right? Or you have the healthy diet. Now when all your family is eating all that XYZ, I hate to say it, but you're probably going to attend the most funerals in your family. And nobody's going to be at yours. Right? Simply because of what they put into their body. In the reading, this is kind of an extracurricular, but it's a big one. I remember Just said that he had the chance to meet a dude who was a butler for the owner of the Redskins and a lot of other very affluent people. He said the most common thing that he sees in affluent people, and the studies show this too, is that they read a ton. That's why I started reading a couple of years ago, and I've only missed a day because I noticed I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no clue what I was going to do. I didn't know about Game 7, but I knew I wanted to change my life. So I just started studying successful people, and I noticed that number one, everything that they do every day, including the weekends. Like if you notice, the weekend is for entertainment, but on the other side of that entertainment, somebody's getting bread in their pockets. We all go to the club, somebody's working. We all went to dinner last weekend. The owner was in there working, right? Even us, we were being entertained. We were eating. He was working. So remember, on the other side of that, somebody's always working. So all in all, so that we can avoid this death penalty, the homicides, suicides. Normally, those are broken people who've been through tons of trauma. You know, nobody just kills themselves. The liquor, the tobacco, the laziness in terms of inactivity, the poor diets. We're getting stuck on the first order, and we all know about the second and third, but we're making the choice to stay at the first, which, speaking for Malcolm only, is extremely selfish, unless you just care about you. There's people who count on you. Yeah, like your son and your daughter, G. I know you already know this. And Nas, for me, they want us to be here as long as possible. They want us when we get sick. They don't want to have to pull the plug. Oh yeah, my dad got sick, but he pulled through. Right? I'm sure Just can speak on that. He was begging and pleading for Mr. Darren to pull through. Right? And Mr. Darren was healthy. Maybe his lack of health was how he handled stress, maybe. But I know for a fact that Just would have did anything for Mr. Darren to pull through. And the same thing with Pizzle. So we all know better to make the choices that we need to get to step 3, no matter what step 1 and step 2 take. Same thing here, same thing on number 3. So to answer G's question, I would say that we have to learn to get over dissonance and be coherent, do the things that we know we were supposed to do, and get beyond the first order consequence, because that's the death penalty, literally and figuratively, so we can get to steps 2 and 3. So let's take closing remarks from G, Pizzle, then Just.
Now, I think we summarized it pretty well. I think at the end of the day, regardless of if it's exercise, diet, or whatever else, it's really on you. Like everything we've said talks to or speaks to the distractions, but more so how you react to them. Because we all have similar distractions, but the difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person is how we respond to those distractions. And that's what this boils down to. You can run to McDonald's, or you can plan your day out and prepare your own meal. You can sit on the couch and watch your favorite show, or you can watch your favorite show and lift some weights at the same time. But what do you want? And what types of choices are you making is what it boils down to ultimately.
And to kind of echo off of that, I think it all comes down to like decisions, right? What are you going to decide to do? Are you going to decide to kill yourself, or are you going to decide to get the help that you need, right? You look at suicide, people decide to kill themselves, or they decide to call the hotline or find the help from the therapist. So it's all about choices. What do you want to do with your life? And you make the decision.
I guess for me, it's really it's a common sense approach, guys and ladies listening. If you look at individuals in your family and you see them making these decisions, and over life you see what those outcomes are of their decisions, you have to make a decision on whether you want those outcomes or not. If you don't want the outcomes, you have to choose differently, right? I know it may, all change is uncomfortable, but one of the great things about the time and place that we're living in now is that we have access to people that are not even just around us. Okay. You hear me say this multiple times, but if it's, on these podcast conversations, but if there are people around you that don't support your vision that you have for yourself, get a part of an online community, get a part of, a Facebook group or a Instagram page, and really, be an active member in it. Share what your goals are, share where you're struggling at. People are in a place where, especially in our generation and younger, we look for the real. We understand that life is not a highlight tape. We understand that life is not just all wins. It is very much a roller coaster. And, but it really is going to come from you just having a common sense approach to saying, hey, look, Do I like the way that my parents, my family, my older siblings look? Maybe not. All right, so that means I need to change something. Did their diet have a part in that, right? What they put in their body, what they watched, what they heard, what they entertained, right? Is gossip something that is very, very normal? Is it focusing on what other people do rather than what we do? Is it putting, bad food in our body that we know is going to cause these common illnesses like high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, things of that sort, right? And even if you don't, just what is their outcome? And then ultimately, you want to just make sure that you're making decisions for you, because genuinely, while we do have this family perspective and we do have this community perspective, a conversation I had with my dad at one time when he was sick was, hey, look, man, I know our family's going to try to give you comfort in this moment, right? They're going to try to give you, access to foods that you shouldn't eat. They're going to, make it so that you feel like you don't have to get out of bed and struggle to learn how to walk again. They're going to try to provide comfort. But if things don't work out for you, you're going to be the one in the ground, baby. We're going to cry. We're going to hurt. But guess what? We're going to keep moving. We're going to keep moving. And Rick Ross said something, I'll leave y'all on this, that if you don't believe that that's true, Rick Ross said, he said this statement that I'll always carry. He said, regardless of how it goes down, life goes on. Okay? So regardless of how you react to the situation, regardless if you change or not, if it works out for you or not, this life will continue to go on. You just want to be a part of it as much as possible, right? If we're looking at this screen, it's the very, very last point I'm going to make. If you're a black male and you didn't make it out of 1 to 19, you just gave up a 60-year potential that you had after that. The life expectancy at the bottom right of the screen, 79 years basically. You didn't make it past 19? Golly. Decisions. We seen, hey, look, my friends, they're getting active in gunplay. 14, 15, 16 years old. I work in a high school. It's a turning point. 12 years old, usually turning point. 7th or 8th grade. You can see the mindset shift. That's when kids are trying drugs, trying tobacco. Now you're old enough to go to carry out by yourself on the way home. Not really in elementary school, but in middle school, yeah. I'll stop and get some food. So just be mindful of your habits. And it's never too young to make a decision for you. Never too young. Okay, if you're 7 years old. Make a decision for you. Right? And then hold on to that vision that you have for yourself, no matter who or what opposes it or presses against you to change it. Okay? You have to hold on to that light and that vision that you have.
Hey, great point, Jess. And to close it out, I want to harp on some things that you all said. So number one, a decision that goes directly into the habit loop. Trigger, behavior, reward. What do you decide to do once you have that trigger? Right? It's not a decision unless it's followed by action. Very, very often in our group chat, I'll see like a before and after story. I always put it in the chat. Made a decision. That's all it is. Once you make the decision, it's over. For whatever you're committed to doing, you're going to do it. Like you're going to do it. And like that's one of, I won't call this negative feedback or to go but G says, it's an excuse. Like me, when I make a commitment, it's over. And like y'all my proof. Like the day I said that I was done with me, I told y'all, never cheated. Never go back. I told you I was going to start working out every day. I've missed one day in probably about 800 now. Never go back, right? Are we going to do game 7? Yo, we all in the mix, right? But y'all know me, like it's literally how I am. Now I can't do, or I said I was going to stop drinking. I'm done. Like never go back. Well, now I can't just stop. I can't go cold turkey like you. That's a lie. Just tell me that it's not important enough for you to stop. Like we said on confronting weaknesses and making hard choices, step 1 is to tell the truth. Because eventually that person that was extremely overweight in that before picture, all they did was make a decision to get to that after. That was it. The person that, they gave it a shot and they quit, they didn't make a decision. Because to go to the next point that one of you said, y'all talked about wanting it. When you want it, that's not a decision. It needs to be a need. Like E.T. says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, you don't want to breathe. Like you literally need to breathe. Like when it has to be a need, that's when you're not going to backslide. Right? And G also said reacting versus responding. Maybe this is where the reading comes in and understanding trigger behavior reward. Oh shit. Cupcakes on the table. How do I react? Right? Oh, I got this plan, but when you react, you're going to eat it. As opposed to you're responding. All right, when you respond, it's a thought out process. All right, that's my trigger. What's my behavior? Yo, mom, I know it's Mother's Day, but I ain't trying to be disrespectful, but I'm really trying to be here for my daughter's Mother's Day. So I'm going to just take a walk because I feel like I'm about to eat that and I need to stay committed to my decision. Right? That's a response as opposed to a reaction. And then the most important one is community. Like G said, just said, get online. Right? Or come mess with us. Like KG will take a bullet for anybody's health. He will do anything for you to help you with your health. Like for free, a charge, like he'll get on Zoom, anything. Anybody on this call will like do anything to help you. Right? Or just get on YouTube, like how to lose weight in 90 days or how to eliminate gun violence or how to do whatever. But community is very, very important and in different ways. Like just made me think about what he said about his family when Mr. Dan was passing away. I never forget when Just called me and said Mr. Dan was gone. He ain't getting no maybe sympathy, I should say.
No sympathy, yeah.
No sympathy. It's like, yo, now they counting on you. Go through your process, get it out. But I knew that was like a make or break moment for him. Because the strongest people, a loss of life or accident or something can make them break. And not only was it the stress of losing his father, but the stress of the residuals of losing his father. But in his community, even through the trauma, he was pushed to do, I guess I can call it the right thing. He was pushed to do the strong thing. Or whenever somebody in our circle is bluffing, they're going to hear about it, right? Now, we all know you get to make your own choices, but you're going to hear about it. And that's probably the biggest thing is your community. And luckily, in 2021, we got phones, we got internet, we got smart TVs. You can join any community in the world. So I know we kind of went hard today, but to be solution oriented, join us every Saturday morning, 8 a.m. You get some free training. Jump on the podcast. Almost all of this curriculum, almost all of these content comes from our curriculum, where people pay us thousands of dollars to get access to. And it don't have to be us. It's ET, it's white men, it's white women, it's Asians, it's Hispanics, all different kinds of personal development communities that you can join. So don't make it a want, make this a need. And remember that if you're struggling, don't think about you. Like write down the 3 most important people in your life and write down the things that will happen to them when you start to get to the 3rd order consequences and stop getting stuck on the first. So to close it out, number 1 killer in our community, homicide. Number 3, or I'll say 3.5 for both age groups, is suicide. And 44% of the country in all demographics, our lives are taken early because of our choices. Tobacco, inactivity, bad eating, and alcohol. So happy Mother's Day. Make the right choices so you can be around for as many more Mother's Days as possible. See you next week. Peace out.